Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Rise with Sarah Zincota. I am your host, Sarah, and today we have CEO Rex from MA Legal joining me today. What can I say, Rex? The minute that we met, your energy is really contagious. The things that you do for the real estate industry is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm really pleased to have you on as a guest today. So welcome, Rex.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for all you do for the industry as well. You give back as much as anyone.
Oh, appreciate that. Teamwork makes the dream work. So we've done some things together. I'm looking forward to our future collaborations. But Rex, for those that may not know you, and I hope that they do know you, but perhaps if they do not know you, tell them a bit about Rex.
About Rex, what I do, I like to help people. My why in life has always been to help people. So I'm very fortunate. I'm a lawyer and well, some other stuff that I do. So I get to help people day in, day out. So it never really feels like working for me.
I love that. And I can testify to that because you make it so easy, especially with your real estate oh my gosh, real estate innovators. It's definitely you make people feel welcome. You're always sharing insights to help the industry and help the people within the industry and not just as a lawyer, but, as a human being as well. So I absolutely love that, Rex. So how did your journey start with working as a lawyer in real estate?
How did it start? I was mischievous when I was younger. I did 3 different high schools. Maybe we should talk about that part of it. But I'm a Persian background. So all my Persian friends are doctors. Everybody in my, I suppose, culture becomes doctors. I was rebellious, so I became a lawyer. Started at bigger firms for a while, left law after a few years. I was at a boutique firm in South Yarra. They're still around, great firm. They represent 3 people in a BIW Rich 100 list, so it was really nice high-end work. They also shared offices with a fashion company, so I left law. Friday night drinks turned into a job offer to become a general manager for that fashion company. A lot of international travel. The clientele going to that office compared to my office was very different. Back then, I had blonde hair and blue contacts. I had a boy band thing for a while, so a lot of good experience. But then met my now ex-wife, who's a real estate agent herself. She's got her own office, and somehow fell into she didn't think me traveling the world to fashion shows was a great idea for our relationship. Not sure why. And somehow went into law, and from there I started helping her in her business as a lawyer. Then she knew a lot of people. So yeah, 17 years later, I'm a still lawyer for real estate agents with my own law firm. Been practicing for more than 17 years, but the last 17 years has been MA Legal. And I suppose being fortunate enough to work with real estate agents, get to see a lot of stuff. And over time, I've gotten some really good relationships with some of the CEOs of various franchise groups, as well as some of the bigger offices, and work one-on-one with a lot of those guys. And get to see how they operate their businesses and grow their businesses.
Yeah, for sure. Is that why you dress so well, Rex?
Don't know if I do. I'm not sure if I do, but thank you.
Your fashion sense is on point. I love that. And thank you for sharing your journey. I think it's so important that, people always see you like now, but they don't see, how you got to where you are now. So I think it's really important, to remember that your journey has started from somewhere. And I think it's great that you still are in the industry. So, even though maybe your ex-wife didn't see the value back then and give up the fashion industry and come into real estate, thank God she did, Rex. You're in the real
I'm
estate.
still good friends with her. She's an amazing individual, and I was very fortunate to have her as a wife for a period of time.
Oh, that's so lovely. He's such a lovely person. So Rex, the reason I wanted you on today is because I want to talk about all things rent rolls. And I know that you've helped so many people with this, but would love to dive deep first into your thoughts around organic growth and then acquisition. So can you explore that? And for those perhaps that don't know the difference between the organic growth and the acquisitions, give us some insights into that.
Sure. Firstly, rent rolls. I can't stress enough how valuable a rent roll is to any business. It is, if you own a real estate office, That's your superannuation. That's your retirement plan. That's the only asset you have. No offense, sales is not worth anything. You can't really sell it. Your rent roll, you can sell pretty easily these days. You can also borrow against it. You can leverage it. You can go to the banks like Macquarie and the like and get up to 70% of the value of it. The valuation is pretty simple. It's a multiple of what it generates per year. And generally about 3.5 multiple for a Melbourne-based rent roll is accurate. Some go higher, some go lower, and we'll talk about what that is, I think, further down the track. But in terms of that's your asset and how do you grow it? So organic growth, I would always, no matter how big your rent roll is, you're going to lose some. You need to develop some sort of plan to organically grow it. BDMs is ideal. There's no better way to grow your rent roll than a BDM, because that's someone waving your flag and promoting not just your property management, but your business. And the relationships and the marketing you get from that is priceless. The issue of organic growth is it's a slow burn. You're not gonna, if you're making 10 new listings per month, you're doing quite well if you stay consistent with that. And it's not that easy to do. But if you got 10 listings, you got your BDM, you got your property managers, you're not making much money. So it's a big outlay. So your sales team needs to support your property management arm, knowing that you're probably going to lose money on your property management arm in the first few years, but you're growing an asset, you're growing a value. And it's not just the asset of what you're going to sell it for, it's the reputation of your business. There are statistics that show 10, 20% of anything on your property management ends up in your sales departments. So, having that there future-proofs your business, because if you have a large property management portfolio, then you get your sales. You don't need to necessarily, if you do the right thing by your property management, you got to make sure you salvage those landlord relationships well and help them well. It kind of falls back. So, and that's when acquisitions can come in really well, because most businesses, if you're starting a brand new business, it's hard. You got to make a bit of loss before you can make any break-even point even. But if you go and borrow from the banks, you're leveraging the bank's money to grow your business. And that's when acquisitions can come into play really well. You can go borrow the money to buy that rent roll, put it into your business. So it's no longer making a loss. It's breaking even, or maybe we're making a profit. There's a certain equilibrium. Depends on how many property managements you have, but they each got to run a number of managements before it can make a profit.
For sure.
So and a lot of my clients do this, is they have a combination of both. They don't just focus on organic growth, and they don't just focus on acquisitions. In my opinion, a good office does both. Now, there are some people out there, and I've had debates with them, and they're very successful people. I'm not sure if I should mention a name or not, but he's done a phenomenal job in growing it. His business, one of the biggest businesses in Victoria as well. He is against acquisitions. He just organically grows it. But he's got a very strong sales team, and he's made a loss. He's made a loss for the last 6 years on property management. It's a very fast-growing property management arm, but it's still making a loss. And he's okay with that because he's got a big sales team. And he doesn't need to necessarily leverage off the banks. He's using his own money to leverage off.
Yeah.
In the profits from sales. So yeah, my opinion, can work both ways, but ideally you want both.
For sure. Yeah, there's so much to unpack in that. And I think, knowing your numbers is really important, I think, too, Rex, because you've just given an example of someone, a client that right, who actually has that property management arm, has that sales army by the sounds of it, right, and isn't reliant on the property management division making that money. And perhaps that's not the strategy for this particular business owner, is to build that asset value, because he's getting the money to support, I guess, his goals, right, for the business from that sales army. But I think it's important to look at the numbers, and we're going to go into this, but let's go into it now, is really the knowing, okay, you've got that sales team and the rental team, but essentially you've got just one office, right? And what I see is a lot of businesses that have a sales and rental team is this divide, right? So it's like, okay, cool, we've got our sales team, they're doing its thing. We've got our rental team, they're doing its thing. But then if sometimes you ask a sales director or director, I should say, well, do you know the profit and loss of your rental business? Like, do you know what your break even point is? Most likely, and most of the time they'll be like, no, I don't know. Have you seen that yourself?
So many times. And I think the traditional real estate office has sales, as you said, sitting somewhere, rental sitting somewhere completely different. Sometimes in different offices I've seen, like completely far away from each other. Then you have the BDM role, which is kind of sits in between them and is like the message pigeon that takes messages from one to the other.
Yeah.
As good as a BDM is, I don't think that's how it should be done. You see some of the more successful new offices that are doing great things, and even I use good friends and clients of mine, Harcourt's Rata. They've now built that monster factory in Thomastown. They've got all the team in one space, because you can work better together. If your property management has someone that's interested in a sales, or they're looking at getting an appraisal or something like that to sell their property, if they've got that close, if the property manager's got a close link with the sales team, they can give that information. What you hear over the water cooler, the tea breaks or whatever the case may be, that overhearing conversations empowers the team members to go, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Okay, I've got a client potentially for you. And being front of mind, when you're front of mind, you're front of mind. And most of the time, I think the biggest issue is not because of lack of, they don't want to do it, they don't want to make the referral out, but they're not front of mind. And having them work together puts them as front of mind.
Oh, absolutely. And Rada and Co are amazing in their office. Like, I must visit, like, please Rex, like, get me in there. I need to visit. It's beautiful. But what they have essentially created is that culture, right? And again, I know so many businesses that the property managers don't know anything about the sales agents, and the sales agents don't know anything about the property managers. So we're talking about growth today and rent rolls, where you've got these businesses who aren't having that unity and that synergy between human beings that can benefit off each other. And I remember when we spoke last year, you're like, yeah, the BDM essentially is the glue, right? But imagine how powerful an organization would be if the BDM is just part of the team and all of the team is working, have this beautiful ecosystem that supports each other, right? More leads for the sales, more leads for the rentals, higher visibility and attraction in your marketplace. How incredible.
And if you look at all the large agencies, like, it's not just Rada, Spiro and his team at Barry Plant Eastern, they've got a great system there as well. Dexter and Judd White, Harcourt's Judd White, great system as well. Robin Michelle, Ray White, Werribee, great system as well. Those are some of the 4 of the biggest offices in Victoria, and they all run the same model. But then you go to the small offices, and I won't necessarily name many of them, but they don't have that model. They've got this property management is on this level, sales is on the other side of it. The sales teams will have their meeting, the property managers will have their meeting. It's not one big team. And you see the difference in the 2 offices from an outside point of view. You see those one big team offices convert so much more, a larger percentage of the property management turn into their sales.
Yeah. I must give a shout out to Jodie Statten. She's up in Queensland. So she's been working for the Harcourt's brand now. She used to be Coronis, but her property management team, and I know this will be a bit controversial as well, actually lists more than, or has listed more than her BDM team. Not only that, but her model now and her strategy has seen the business not lose rental properties to other sales agents rather than their own. Can you imagine the type of growth and the revenue that business is producing? Massive.
It's massive. And, it's just about training look, BDMs are great at getting new business, but their role should be getting new business. Your property managers in your office should be about harnessing the relationship.
I love that.
And I think that's where it can go wrong, because they don't give enough sales training to the property managers in the office, because they give it to the sales team, they give it to the BDMs, but the relationship once they're in your management is with your PM. It's not with the BDM team, it's not with your sales team. But how many spend that time to give the sales training to the property managers only?
Yeah, for sure. And I think then as well, Rex, vice versa. Like, why can't we be training the sales agents or the sales team to know the basics and the foundations of property management? Because working in a property management only business, like I used to spread this all the time, and I'm not shy away. Like, I love sales agents, don't get me wrong. Like, sales agents, we love you. We're not criticizing you, but they had no idea when it came to compliance, or, if they were selling a property and an investor had purchased it, well, the condition that the property was left in, because then this new purchaser had to do massive cleanup just to get the home ready for rent. And I think there's still that disconnect again between the departments. It's like, let's help each other out, right? Let's educate each other.
It's more about showing the benefits. Look, we love salespeople, but salespeople are salespeople. If it's something in it for them, they sometimes pay more attention than other reasons. But I think it's the education piece to the sales agent saying knowledge is power. If you can go into a listing presentation and you've got this extra knowledge and go, hey, this is a rental property, so we're going to look at the condition report, make sure, getting those extra words in there, it makes you sound so much more knowledgeable than that competitor that went in there without any of that. And then you might get the listing because of these words you're saying. And I think when salespeople understand that is actually what's going to happen, then they'll start paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect example of that. Because I rent vest, and where I am renting, typically the area is older generation, right? And we get door knocked all the time from sales agents. Not once have I had a sales agent, when I say that we're actually renting, ask, do you have any motivation to buy a property, or do you have an investment property? That's just one question or two questions you can ask. And I'm like, this is where I'm saying, like, we're talking about organic growth and how easy it can be when we're unified as an organization or an office or a business.
And you could be rent investing for, it's a lot more tax benefits. You could have next door as your property.
That's probably, yeah.
And
some of my owners used to do that when I was a property manager at BDM.
Because it's just a lot more tax incentives to not live in your place of not live in a property. It's more tax incentives to have as an investment property, so you can depreciate stuff and deduct stuff. So, but they don't ask that question. A simple question: could I get another listing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when we're coming to like organic growth here, like there are still so many opportunities out there, and I think as a team, like harness that so that everyone is on that growth trajectory, right? Because like you said, even though this particular director might be going, oh, well, I don't really need to build that asset, but by him not building up that asset for the rentals, well, he's potentially missing out on more sales.
100%. So, and also, what's his future? Like, because as you grow that asset, it's not just more sales, it's more branding, more everything out there. You're getting more of a market share, because a market share is not just sales.
Yeah.
I think should play a part in that market share.
For sure. And Rex, I'd love to know your thoughts on this, because it's a conversation that is coming up a bit more regularly now with some BDMs that I work with, especially BDMs that are listing, 30 plus a month, which is in my eyes, that's your higher performing 1% of BDMs across Australia, New Zealand and Tas when you're doing those numbers, is about potentially becoming a partner or having shares in the business. Have you seen this more coming out yet?
Many times, and I think it's become more prominent, and the large offices we work with have put on just not BDMs but property managers as partners. So
awesome.
You can let the cat out of the bag. But Rata, for example, what we mentioned earlier, they've just put on a new partner who was just a property manager. Went from he started as property manager in Rata, and now he's a partner. Didn't do anything else. Never sold the property. Never did BDM. Just the property manager, and just shows the value. And I think more and more businesses are doing this.
Yeah.
It's important when you're doing it, you get the right advice and you make sure you have a really solid partnership agreement. If it's a shareholder agreement, if it's units in a unit trust, a unit holders agreement, you just get that part right because that's your rule book. It's great to be a partner, but if you've got no voting rights, nothing, if you don't have any power, what's the point? It becomes golden handcuffs almost. So it's important to just make sure it's fair. Like if you're a junior partner, you're not going to run the show. There's going to be restrictions on you, but you do have certain says on, for example, if the senior partners or the majority partners are paying themselves all the profits and you're not getting any money, well, that's not fair. So there's ways to control it, just to make sure it's about fairness.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you just mentioned, well, there wasn't even a BDM. It was actually a property manager. And I think, like I said, there's some businesses that the property managers are actually, listing really great numbers because the vision is there. So what do you think typically are let's look at pros and cons then on, organic growth versus acquisitions?
The pro organic growth, it's yours. You haven't paid for it, so you're instantly building value to it. The con of organic growth is it's going to cost you time and money because it doesn't have, even if you're listing 30 a month in the top 1%, it's going to take at least a year to break even on. So you're going backwards, but that's okay. You're building an asset. When you're building an asset, you don't expect to be building profit as well as assets. That's very rare to do. It's a unicorn, I think they refer to. It doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen in property management. You're not going to have profit from day one. You're going to be making a loss on the department, but you're building an asset for the future. The alternative to that is acquisitions. If you're acquiring, you've got 400 from day one, or X number from day one. So it's already breaking even, or whatever the case may be. It's fast forwarded you a few years. Even if you did 30 new a month, that's 120, no, more than that, 300 something a year. So 360 a year. So that's still not, that's a whole year. You could just fast track that and buy 360 in one hit and have it within a month. You can also leverage the back. You're not making a loss on it month in, month out for the whole year. From day one, you borrowed the money from the bank. So you can leverage the bank's your own borrowing power and the asset itself. The bank lends you money on the asset of the rent roll. Unlike most other businesses, most other businesses want equity, like property or something like that. With rent rolls, they give it on the asset of the rent roll. So you don't need anything else. You just use that asset to borrow against it. Grow it.
Yeah, that's great. Really, really great points. And I think, reaching out to someone like yourself, Rex, and just having these discussions and also like knowing your numbers and know what you're working towards too, right? Like why do you want to do an acquisition, or why do you want to focus on organic growth, and workshop those pros and cons as well, because essentially as well, with doing an acquisition, there could be some things that maybe you haven't done your due diligence properly, and I know that you've spoken about this before, Rex, but also looking at, well, if you're going to sell a portion of a rent roll, who's going to be buying it? There's so many things that you need to look into so that it is the right choice of doing acquisition. And on that, I want to talk about geographical spread of organizations, because I think that what I have seen is that there are some businesses that want to grow organically, and then they're just like taking on properties on everywhere, right? And I don't think that is the right investment in terms of, your ROI for your team when you're sending them out everywhere. But what do you find, or what do you think is the best approach when, looking at, okay, whether you're doing an acquisition or growing organically, looking at, okay, well, what's your target market and that geographical spread?
It's a really good question, and it's really important to know a value. So the value of a rent roll is got several factors. Gone are the days where you used to go, hey, it's turning over $100,000, I'm going to get $300,000 for it. There's other factors valuers look at, banks look at as well. So that it may limit what your borrowing capacity is as well. Or if you ever sold it, your educated buyer will look at this. First factor they look at is geographical spread. If your property is a spread from Melbourne to Geelong, it ain't worth 3. You're not going to ever get that. You're going to get like a 2 multiplier. And if I spoke to you, I'll go, you've done it wrong. You've spread yourself too far. You just sell it in sections, because one buyer ain't going to drive from Melbourne to Geelong to do inspections and routine opens and all of the stuff that comes with property management. Even your tradies are not going to travel that far. So the geographical spread is really important to keep the value high. You want to keep it as concentrated as possible. Another thing that people don't realize is landlords, multi-landlords. Multi-landlords affects the valuation of your rent roll as well. Because if you've got one landlord with 20 properties, that is a much higher risk to a purchaser, because if they lose that one landlord, they've lost 20 properties. And what happens normally with those situations is there's a retention period, a portion of the purchase price is retained in trust post-settlement to make sure if there's no fall-offs. With multi-landlord properties, the retention is normally higher and longer periods, much longer periods, to make sure that one landlord's got multiple properties stays on for longer. So what I work with a lot of my educated clients now is what they realize is there's not many buyers for super large rentals. So if you're going to sell a rent roll that's got thousands and thousands and thousands on it, there's not many buyers. It may be on the market for a long time. So what they do is, as they grow their rent roll, what they're doing is the smarter owners will increase the value of their rent roll. And by doing so is they keep all the stuff that's in their geographical spread and not sell it, but the outer circle stuff, they might sell 50, sell 20, sell 100. That's outside their geographical spread where they want to be located, and sell the others. A lot easier to get a good multiplier, quick sale on 50 than it is on selling something that's 2,000. So they're capitalizing on these sales on the outer things, increasing the overall value of their rent roll as well, and cashing in throughout time.
That's really great points to consider, Rex, for sure. Yeah. And I think that's great takeaways for anyone thinking about, doing acquisitions is to reviewing that. And, talking about the value that you said it earlier, as well as the asset value, like that's important, looking at the fees that it's getting, looking at the disclosure statements, looking at the compliance, the quality of the properties. And I think one thing that goes perhaps unnoticed too is the actual notes within the trust accounting or property management software of, well, how well do they know the landlords and the properties? I think that is so undervalued, like in terms of relationships, and we're in the biz industry to, help people and build those relationships, is, well, how well do they actually communicate with their clients? How long have they been with the business for? I think that's so undervalued.
How much they help their clients. So the larger offices do a lot of ongoing help and training and seminars just for their landlords, because they're salvaging that relationship with them. And they also can profit from that. So there's connection companies, there is law firms, there's mortgage brokers out there that work specifically with real estate agents, where they provide free information, free advice to their landlords, and they distribute it through their landlords. So it's helping their landlords ongoing support and ongoing education. Hey, did you know this has happened? Hey, did you know interest rates have dropped? Do you want someone to look out for you? And then if they do engage, the professional body, with the mortgage broker, lawyer, whatever, will give a feedback to the agency, so they can get this ancillary income from it as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Whilst helping that relationship.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to play a little bit devil advocate here, Rex, right? Because I work with the you know, let's just say the bigger offices and the more boutique offices. And what I am seeing though is that there are a lot more businesses opening now that are property management only. And a lot of the reason why they have decided to open up their own property management businesses is generally because lack of support from their directors, which have typically been sales focused or orientated, right? Freedom, which is what we spoke about off air, but essentially, you know, going out on your own, having your business there's that word is like that freedom. And because they're actually like, well, I can make some good money and I can be building an asset that helps me think about retirement, or potentially doing what you just said is building up a geographical spread and selling off a portion of these rent rolls and building up. Like one of my clients, within, you know, 4 months of going out on her own, she's got nearly 70 properties, and that's just organic growth, right? So like, and that's fairly quick, I would say. She's been in the industry for a long time, but like that's phenomenal. So I think let's not underestimate the smaller agencies coming out that perhaps are also, you know, looking at the gaps in some of the market too, and going, okay, well, these guys actually aren't doing those educational nights, or, you know, they're not actually being visible on their social media for their rentals. And oh my gosh, there's so many companies that still do that. It blows my mind. But they're finding these gaps in their market, and they're like, they're running Rex, you know, because they are passionate about the property management space. So it's like, the big offices, watch out, because these smaller boutique agencies, they're on fire. Like they're driven to really make a difference and an impact in that space. So, and I'm sure you've been
focused, because the big offices sometimes don't focus on
focused. Yeah.
When you've got these, I'll go back one step and say, if you do have an office, you may want to make sure the restraints in your employment agreement are very tight, because the last thing you want to do is have someone in your property management arm leave, go set up a competing business and take your rent roll. And that does happen, unfortunately. And it's really interesting that the courts have taken this broad approach towards property management that, hey, there's no restriction on the landlord to stay with you. So if your property manager leaves and takes all your rent roll, if your restraint was 6 months, they're entitled to 0.5% multiplier.
Yeah.
So it's really important you fix that in your agreements.
For sure. Or let's look at retaining that team member, like what we spoke about is, you know, partnership or perhaps equity, so that entices them to grow with the business.
Because you know what it is? It's not even about partnership or equity, which is great if you get it, but keeping them happy. No one necessarily wants to go set up their own business. I mean, you mentioned your client who's done really well setting up 70, but 70 doesn't make you that much money. She'll probably make more money from salaries than she would on the 70 at this stage. And it's 4 months of grind, and she's done a phenomenal job to get to 70, but she probably would have made more money just as a property manager. So she's gone out of her way, incurred these extra liabilities, everything, because she must have been really unhappy. And not to get to that position where your staff is that unhappy that they have to go do this.
Yeah, good points. Yeah. See, it's all perspective, isn't it, Rex? Right? Like there's so many different, you know, scenarios now. And I think, you know, especially why I was so passionate about really focusing my niche on the BDM space is because, again, there was such a huge emphasis on like the sales and the rentals and not as much on the BDMs, where we've spoken about like your BDMs. Well, if you want to do organic growth, like, and have your property managers nurture and retain, your BDMs will make sure that, you know, the portfolios aren't going backwards, right? They will be able to be the face of the entirety of the business, not just a rental team, the sales, and be able to add value to the sales team and help them with that educational pieces that we're talking about. So I think there's so much gold in here, and please, anyone, like, please reach out to Rex if you are looking at, you know, strategies as well. Because I know, Rex, your just mind and your wisdom is so phenomenal when it comes to this stuff.
I think I'm just fortunate enough to see enough of it.
Yeah.
That's all
and
it
talk
is.
to enough people.
Yeah, when you see enough transactions that I have my teams go through, that you just pick up stuff along the way. So it's not, I don't know if there's anything special, unfortunately. It's more just exposure. I have a lot of exposure to it.
Oh, you're so humble, Rex, but I think you're amazing. But let's talk about now, because this is also what I love about you is, yes, you're a lawyer and you're a CEO, but there's so much that you do. And, forever I'm following you and going, oh, you're doing these amazing things. So, and I know that you are a go-getter, like you just get shit done, right? So where
Sometimes to my detriment.
where has this come from? Like, have you always been someone that's just been a go-getter, or has it progressed?
I think it progresses. I think I don't know if I'm a go-getter in the first place, but I set myself challenges. I set myself challenges in all aspects of my life, and I review my challenges constantly. So it's not a set and forget kind of thing. It evolves, it changes. And even when I get to the end of a challenge, I find something new to refocus myself. I think self-education is the best education anyone can have. Rather, you can read books, but when you want to read it, you understand it. And when you set yourself certain goals, tasks, whatever the case may be, you just push yourself. So I set myself these silly goals, and some of them can be seen as silly, but I learn from that process and that journey. And again, all aspects of my life. I've always got physical goals, career goals, family goals, and goals in every aspect of my relationship goals, etc., which I fail on. But the physical goals, I suppose, the ones that sometimes get more credit than others, because my last physical goal was to do a boxing fight. Never had a boxing fight in my life. Ended up having 2 boxing fights. It was fun. Learned a lot about myself through that journey. My current physical goal is to become a rugby union player and represent Australia in the World Cup over 35s that's coming up. So it's a whole new skill set. Never played rugby before. Gone in, all in, like gotten some great trainers or ex-Wallabies teaching me, joined a club, running around with 20-year-olds, and started my first game just over the weekend. We won the game as well. So it's a journey, and that journey is not just learning a skill set, but it's learning internally, like what you can push yourself to, what you can physically get up to or mentally do. So I big believer in setting yourself challenges and making yourself accountable. And I think social media helps me become accountable, because I put it out there and I go, well, I've got to do it now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the fact that, and it's fascinating, because I look at the wheel of life, which is essentially what you said, right? You've got a goal for all your different areas of your life. And one of the things that I do with my clients is I actually say, okay, rate yourself. Where are you in these areas of your life, right? And they might not be a 10 out of 10. It's like, okay, cool. Do you want improvement in these areas of your life? And most of them are like, yeah, I do. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Yeah. And that's what you've taken that step and go, okay, I want fulfillment in these areas. I want to push myself. I want to challenge myself. I want to learn more. And then you're setting these goals or setting these challenges to be able to achieve those things. And so I love that. And I think anyone that's listening, like, take that and really challenge yourself, challenge your life. Because I always say, if we're not learning, we're dying, right? And Rex, you're a little bit older than me, but you're so fresh and energetic. I know that you have children as well, and I'm sure that what you're doing now supports you being an active dad.
I'm more active than them sometimes. They get tired before I get tired, so which is good. I might share a little. My secret to doing all this is it's an old Sigmund Freud pain and pleasure principle. I use it in all aspects of my life. Swear by it. It's how I mind hack myself. His theory is that the body will gravitate towards pleasure and do anything to avoid pain. So, if you see fire, even if you want to touch it, you ain't going to touch it. But if you see chocolate, hey, it's pleasure. You want to have as much of it as possible. What I do to push myself to get up early, do whatever I need to do, is reprogram my own mind to associate that with pleasure, not pain, and associate not doing it with pain. And when I do that, no matter what, I do it. So simple example would be, and I use this example, it's actually not mine, I got it from Tony Robbins, is chocolate. If you tell anyone to not have chocolate, if you've program their mind to chocolate is pleasure, long term, they'll always end up having it. They're not going to stop having the chocolate just because they may avoid it once or twice, or, they've had a good month of dieting, so they're not going to touch it. But then afterwards, they're going to go straight back into the chocolate. If you program their mind to say that chocolate is pain, you're going to get fat, you're going to put acne on you. If you actually associate great pain, you'll never have it again.
Yeah.
By having it, they get pain, and it's like the fire. If you reprogram your mind, it has that effect. And I generally do that. So if I haven't slept, or if I want to sleep in, but I wake up early to do my training to get out of the way, I just get up. It's not, the bed is warm. My pain is not doing it. So and I do that for most aspects of my life. It takes a while to develop it, to associate something, avoid the pleasure to make it painful, but for me, it works wonders.
It's a great practice, Rex. And I also love Tony Robbins. There's so much to learn from him. And I think, that's such gold. And an actual example for you is just get up and do it, right? Because the actual the pain also from not doing that thing, it's like it has to be greater, right? It's the benefits of you getting up and doing those things is greater than you staying in bed in your comfy, cozy bed where it's warm. Yeah. And it's that drive.
Associate with the pleasure of I'm here now.
Yeah.
And by the time they get to the pain, it's too late.
Yeah, for sure.
That initial trigger of I'm pain. It's not pleasure.
Yeah. And I think mindset is so important, not just in business, but in life. And as human beings, we have the ability to, like what you said, is retrain our minds, and it's a daily practice. And I think you embody that in everything that you do. And that's why, you're such a great leader in this space, Rex, as well. So great tips there to end it as well. So thank you so much. Rex, people can get in touch with you so many ways, and I will put your details below, but, anyone watching, if you're in the real estate space, please make sure you connect with Rex. You've got your podcast, your videos that you do as well, which always share great insights there. And I just wanted to say thank you for joining me today, and all that you do to give back and help people. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's been a really great pleasure getting to know you over the last, 18 months now.
Pleasure's all mine, Sarah. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all you do for the industry as well. You've got a real niche that it's such a shortage of. There's no one, as you've mentioned earlier, no one trains BDMs. It's such a crucial aspect of every business.
Appreciate that, Rex. And as always, team watching today, keep rising.
Yes.